Perhaps you people have an idea I'm going to speak in English. Sorry for that. And with my ping-pong Pakistani Indian accent. Sorry for that. Because that part of the world was colonized by Britain rather than Sweden. And as SFI standards are not so good, I haven't been able to learn so much Swedish just by going to SFI. Anyway, thanks for coming and giving Swedish Kashmir Committee a chance to explain or inform about one of the very important and crucial questions that is often misunderstood all across the world, including the Indian subcontinent. What we often think here in West or in world outside the Indian subcontinent is that Kashmir is some kind of border dispute between India and Pakistan. Perhaps it is India that has captured Kashmir and Pakistan want it back or something like that. Well, to be honest, that is not the question at all. Not from the beginning, never. Kashmir is a country occupied by India and Pakistan. It was an independent country, occupied in 1947 and 48 during a war by India and Pakistan. And the people of Kashmir, for the last about 54 years, have been fighting for their independence from these two countries. And that is the dispute. A dispute for the freedom of over 13 million people. A dispute for the independence of about 222,000 square miles of land. And I think I will try to give as much information as possible about the Kashmir history and how the conflict developed and what is happening right now, and then of course you people will get a chance to ask the questions, and I will try whatever I can to inform you people. Well, Kashmir is a pretty old country. We have a recorded history of over about 4,000 years. It used to be a big Buddhist empire comprising present-day Pakistan, India, parts of China, Afghanistan, some parts of Iran. Kashmir was part of that. And population-wise, it's bigger than almost 127 countries of the world. But in the whole of South Asia, it was very small. Kashmir was actually a region. Kashmir from British in 1842. The British, when they were colonizing India, they could not capture Kashmir. They rather had an agreement with the Raja of Jammu, and he bought Kashmir from Britishers as a kind of compensation from a Sikh empire, which was, there was another party, it was called Muslim League. It was party of the Muslims of Indian subcontinent, and they wanted a separate country that became Pakistan later on. While the Britishers were leaving in 1947, they offered a deal to Kashmir and some other states in Indian subcontinent which were independent, which were not part of the Indian subcontinent government or were not part of the British India. They were given a choice that they can join India, they can join Pakistan, or they can be an independent country. Same is true about India. I mean, their biggest agricultural place is Punjab, and that depends on the waters of Kashmir. So they needed Kashmir under their control. First of all, it was Pakistan that sent its armies. Actually, it sent its mercenaries from one area, they were Pashtuns, to capture Kashmir. So they were able to capture the area which is green in this map. This was captured by Pakistani forces. And the Kashmir king, he didn't have a strong army. So he asked help from India. This was the king of Kashmir at that time. His name was Maharaja Hari Singh. Indian Prime Minister Nehru, he himself was from Kashmir. His forefathers, they came from Kashmir. He was a Hindu. He agreed to send army, but he made a deal with the king of the Kashmir. Okay, I send my armies, but you will have to later on decide that Kashmir will be part of India. Well, king refused to do it, and so did this guy, Sheikh Abdullah. He was the main political leader of Kashmir at that time. But they made an agreement, okay, we want to stop the Pakistan army, send your army, and then when it's a kind of peace, we will decide what to do. Well, Indian army comes there, and the map which I was showing before, the green part was under the control of, can it go back? Because in Pakistan, they need to maintain a very big army. 33% of the Pakistani federal budget every year, it goes to their military. 33% of the Indian budget goes to the Indian army every year. And if you compare it with the development works in India and Pakistan, 1% goes to education in Pakistan. Almost 2% goes to education in India. Massive poverty in both countries. The biggest number of the poor live in this part of the world, what we call India and Pakistan. And then people ask, why the hell do we need these big armies? And India says, look, they will snatch Kashmir from us. If we don't have the big army, and India has over 700 million military paratroops in Kashmir. And the same thing is told by Pakistan to its people. Look, if we don't have a big army, India will capture whole of Kashmir, and Pakistan has over 250,000 Pakistani troops in Kashmir. And every time they need some kind of an attempt to distract people in India and Pakistan. For instance, there is some political disturbance in India, there is an election in India, they just start a war in Kashmir. And also, they never start a war on the border of India and Pakistan. Because there, if the Indians and Pakistanis are getting killed, then there will be a strong peace movement. There other come to Kashmir, on both sides, when they fire, they kill people, they kill civilians, they kill Kashmiris. Pakistanis and Indians don't care, because it's not them getting killed. So that's the kind of justification they have in the name of Kashmir for the last over 50 years for these big armies. They have built nuclear weapons, and Kashmir is the only point today in the world which has 3 nuclear states on its borders: China, India and Pakistan. And at least China and India has border disputes in the past, they have still problems. When India went nuclear, it said, well, our enemy is China, we have no nuclear for the sake of China and not Pakistan. And Indian-Pakistan enmity, everybody knows about it. There have been 3 wars in the name of Kashmir. 1948, when they captured half of Kashmir, both countries. 1965, when Pakistan tried to capture this blue part of the Kashmir. 1998, when again Pakistan tried to capture Kashmir and there was war. And that time it was very close to a nuclear war in that region. This makes this country a very fragile point in the present world. And not only that, for the last almost 25 years, there is a war going on in Kashmir between India and Pakistan over an area called Siachen. Siachen is the biggest glacier in the world. It's all snow there, and the temperature is -50 all the time, more than even the north of Sweden. Thousands of soldiers from both sides have been killed. The world knows nothing about this war. People in India and Pakistan know nothing about this war. It's a war going on just in secret. My own brother is in military. He was there for almost 4 months. And when he comes back, he tells horror stories. I mean, people just go crazy. There is nothing, not even birds and animals who can survive there. But a war is going on just because that is the highest war point in the world, we say. I mean, it's very high in the Himalayas, and it's an important point to control some strategic military points. So it's a war going on. And then there is an important factor, that is China. Because this green part, which is Kashmir, if it becomes independent, it will be under an imperialist or under the control of US imperialism. China does not need another Taiwan on its border. So China wants a status quo. So does India and Pakistan. But the people of Kashmir, they don't want a status quo. They have been fighting for their freedom actually for over 50 years. As I told you before, the king of Jammu, he was from this area. He was a Hindu. And this area, it's Hindu dominated. This area, this province, Ladakh, it is the biggest province and in area wise, but smallest in the population. Mostly it is Buddhists who live in this province, some Muslims. This area and the green is almost 100% Muslim. Almost 77% of the population, 13.5 million population in this country, they are Muslims. Almost 20% they are Hindus. Rest is Buddhist, Sikh, even some Christians. And I don't know why Mel Gibson made this film Passion of the Christ, showing Christ being killed so brutally. We actually in Kashmir we believe that Christ came to Kashmir and was buried there. So, if anybody is interested, we can invite him to our heart to Kashmir. And in 1962, there was a war between China and India. Perhaps you people know about that. There was a border dispute, and this area, it was captured by China. It's almost no population. It's a big area, about 36,000 square kilometers, under the control of China. The people in Kashmir who were Muslims, they were really oppressed by the Hindu king, and they wanted some rights for them, especially rights in the sense of politics, in the sense of economics. They were not given jobs, they were not represented in the government. So they started a struggle against the king. And also they offered the Hindu king, okay, you bought Kashmir from Britishers for 7.5 million rupees. We can pay you 7.5 million rupees and please leave Kashmir if you need your money. The king refused. So they started a big struggle in late 1920s. In early 1930s, this guy, Sheikh Abdullah, he was a pretty radical person from Kashmir, quite close to socialist and communist ideas. He was also very close to our rather kind of personal friend to Nehru, who was leader of the Congress. Nehru himself was a kind of social revolutionary, very close to left ideas, very impressed with the Soviet Union at that time. So under his influence, Sheikh Abdullah started a very radical political movement in Kashmir. And when Kashmir became a part of India in that part, Sheikh Abdullah went for very big kind of communistic reforms in Kashmir. For instance, land reforms were introduced. Big feudal estates, they were distributed among the peasants. had figured somewhere, almost 188,000 acres were distributed among 153,000 families. Similarly, in the style of Soviet Union, Sheikh Abdullah's government introduced almost 90,000 collective farms. A very big university was built in Srinagar, and if you know the name of Tariq Ali, who has written this famous book, Clash of Fundamentalisms, and written a very nice chapter in it on Kashmir as well. He thinks it's the most beautiful university in the world. Also, he was very much anti-US imperialism. He was against, I'm talking about Sheikh Abdullah. He opposed the Korean War. He opposed the US imperialism's role in that world. And a UN representative in Kashmir at that time, whose name was, and that really scared USA from Kashmir, that it's going to communist. It started supporting Pakistan as much as it could, because Pakistan was a very close ally of US imperialism during that period, even today. Meantime, Nehru, who had promised his personal friend, Sheikh Abdullah, that I will bring back my armies from Kashmir, and Kashmir will be allowed a chance to become independent if there will be a referendum, an election. If Kashmiris want an election and be free, it's their choice. And now Sheikh Abdullah reminds him, look my friend, you had promised me an election in Kashmir. I want election. And Nehru refused. He rather put Sheikh Abdullah in jail. And there was a very big strike in Kashmir, total general strike for 20 days. Everything was closed against this arrest. But Nehru responded with police firings, military intervention, and it was brutal repression for almost 4 months in Kashmir. Thousands were arrested, tortured, hundreds were killed by police and military. And this again was a new beginning of freedom struggle in Kashmir. For next about 20 years, Sheikh Abdullah was almost in jail. He was released every now and then. For instance, after 4 years in 1957, he was released, and Nehru had thought, now he's in jail for 4 years, maybe he's not that popular. And as soon as he comes out, 1 million people were on the road to welcome him. He was that popular. Nehru got scared again. He was put in jail again. And up to 1976, when he was finally released by the daughter of Nehru, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, he was old, he was not that popular anymore, because by that time, another Kashmiri young man, Maqbool Bhatt, he was a bit annoyed with the style of Sheikh Abdullah's politics, because Sheikh Abdullah was pretty much inspired by Gandhi and Nehru's non-violence. But Maqbool Bhatt was a product of late 60s. Was impressed with Che Guevara, was impressed with the revolutionary guerrilla struggles in Latin America, especially in Algiers. There was a successful freedom struggle in other parts of Africa as well, but Maqbool particularly was impressed with the style of Algerian freedom struggle. So he formed a party called Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front. They started kind of guerrilla activities. In 1971, two of young members of Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, they hijacked an Indian plane in 1971, and that was the first ever hijacking case in Indian subcontinent. They brought it to Pakistan, both were arrested, tortured by Pakistani authorities, but this small group, it was able to attract a big attention all across Indian subcontinent, and especially in Kashmir, where the youth, which was fed up with Indian authorities and their repression, they didn't like Sheikh Abdullah's style of non-violence anymore. They wanted some action, and this group was getting big attention. 1978, or was it 78? Maqbul was arrested in India. Yeah, something like that. Maqbul was arrested in India when he was on a guerrilla mission there. He was hanged in 1984 by Indian authorities. And this was kind of a spark that would set the whole fire in the jungle, or the, as we call it, the whole valley was in flames now. Everybody was angry, and the Indian authorities, they increased their oppression in Kashmir. They held an election. Election was totally boycotted, and India just tried to rig the elections to put a fake government in Kashmir. But the government couldn't control Kashmir. A big movement had started by JKLF in 1988. Total general strike, thousands on the road, kids, women, men, old. Everybody was fighting against police and Indian army. I just show you, this is just few pictures from that period. Repression, rapes, tortures, shelling. It was a kind of intifada in Kashmir. But maybe I'm going too far, but too fast. But also, JKLF had one wing for kind of armed struggle, which I personally very much disagree. It was a wrong method at that time. But they went for a guerrilla struggle. And at that time, there was a war going on in Kashmir, in Afghanistan. Pakistan was very much into Afghanistan war as an ally of USA. Also, they had learned to use mercenaries or kind of terrorists. In Afghanistan, they were using Al-Qaeda and that network against Soviet Union. So they thought, okay, why not use this method in Kashmir against Indian army, which is their traditional rival. So they offered a help to JKLF. Okay, we can train your guerrillas, bring them to Afghanistan, we will give them arms. And it was a brutal mistake by JKLF. They thought, okay, we can get help from Pakistan against India. They sent their guerrillas to Afghanistan. But when they came back, the guerrilla was not alone. They were accompanied by Al-Qaeda members. So by early 90s, 92, 93, many kind of, we don't call them Al-Qaeda, it's a new word in the last 4 or 5 years here in West. They used to be called Mujahideen. So these Mujahideen, they started coming to Kashmir. Meantime, the war in Afghanistan was over also. And there were over 25,000 such fighters in Afghanistan. No Muslim country was ready to take them back because everybody was afraid of them. It's been a lot of talk about that since September 11, so I won't go in details. Most of them ended up in Pakistan. Pakistan couldn't afford having these big militias. So they thought getting them engaged in Kashmir. And they started going to Kashmir. These are just more pictures from that period. So, comes this guy. He founded the first Muslim fundamentalist militant group in Kashmir, Hizbul Mujahideen. And they started killing militants of Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, JKLF. Because JKLF was a secular and democratic organization. And the people of Kashmir, traditionally, they have been very secular. We have no problem of Hindu, Muslim, we have no problem of Muslim, Christian, like rest of Indian subcontinent or rest of the Muslim world. We never had this problem. These fundamentalists, they couldn't see this open, tolerant culture of Kashmir. They started implementing Islam through gun because Indian authorities were very weak. Many areas were under the control of freedom fighters. Many towns, many villages,
So what they started doing? On the one hand, they were killing militants and the political activists, politicians, secular and left-wing trade unionists. It became a hell from 92 to 97, 98. On the one hand, it was Indian army that was killing Kashmiris. On the other hand, these fundamentalist groups, they were killing Kashmiris, even throwing acid on women who were not wearing sloya. In almost 10 years, over 60,000 Kashmiris have been killed by the Muslim fundamentalists and the Indian military forces. And there are almost 8.5 million people in that part of Kashmir which is occupied by India. They are big, and figures are even high. I mean, people say it's 80,000 and some international media reports put it 40,000. But I mean, figure is something around 60,000, I think. Rapes, tortures, arrests, political prisoners, they're just another story. And all that has gone totally, almost totally unnoticed by the rest of the world. Why? Because Pakistan is very important for USA, India is very important for USA, both these countries are very important for the European Union, both these countries are very important for Sweden, because Sweden has to sell arms. Sweden has to sell arms to India, to Pakistan, and it's not just for force. It's Saab, it's Volvo, and the figure is very, very, very big. Perhaps Swedes doesn't know how big. By 1960, India had become the biggest buyer in the third world of Swedish weapons. In 70s, still India was the biggest buyer of Swedish weapons in third world. So was in India in 1980s. I just show you some figures. 80, when Bofors sold its famous scandal and guns to India, and perhaps you people know that the biggest money scandal in India has been Bofors. Everybody knows this name in Kashmir and in India, to some extent in Pakistan, Bofors. They just know this name. Perhaps they don't know it's from Sweden, but they know Bofors. It was a big corruption scandal. It was 7,400. And Kashmir becomes victim of these weapons. I will here just talk about Bofors, which are used in Kashmir. And we'll try to link it to the international politics, why no country wants it an independent country. Well, they need to sell arms, they need Indian and Pakistani market for their multinationals. They don't want to annoy them, they don't want to spoil their relations, they don't want to put sanctions on Pakistan even if Pakistan goes nuclear. They don't want to put sanctions on Pakistan even if Pakistan doesn't have a democratic regime. This is sheer politics. Politics for economics, for profit, and the people of Kashmir, they have to pay for this. America also needs some kind of friendship from Pakistan, because Pakistani soldiers are very important when USA fights a war in Afghanistan, USA fights a war in Iraq, when it fights a war in Somalia, because USA doesn't want that its soldiers be killed. Pakistani soldiers are easy available. If they are killed, nobody loses election in Pakistan. So, we need your army, no problem. We will never talk about Kashmir. So is England, so is Sweden, and above all, so is China. Historically, the British Empire, it built Afghanistan and the state of Jammu and Kashmir as a kind of buffer zone against Tsarist Russia at that period, before Soviet Union. And since then, Kashmir has been used as kind of buffer zone also. China now needs, well. So, This was just to show, among other countries, Sweden also has the blood of Kashmiris on its hands. I think people in Sweden also need to support Kashmiris in their struggle, which is just, which is their right. And I think despite all the tortures, all the demoralization at the present, the urge for freedom is very, very, very strong. Not just in Indian part of the Kashmir, but here in Pakistani-controlled Kashmir as well. And I've been talking mainly about Indian Kashmir by far, because the repression has been mainly very high in India for the last 15 years. Pakistan is no better story either. Well, there wasn't that big repression like tortures, rapes and killings, but political repression is very, very, very high. Any party that wants free and independent Kashmir is illegal in Pakistani occupied Kashmir. A big part of Kashmir, it was detached from Kashmir. It was given under direct control of Pakistan authorities. They have no right to vote, they have no code. It's like, it's like Iraq under US control right now. And hundreds of political prisoners, very strong press censor, and when you have 250,000 soldiers, they are not to fight against India or Indian army. They are actually to control Kashmiris. I mean, India and Pakistan have no war. It's just a bullshit, a nonsense to think that India and Pakistan will have a war. They're very intelligent. I mean, these bastards who run in Pakistan, the military generals and who are running India, why should they have war? They have a very nice life in the name of Kashmir and in the name of problems with India. And it suits them. They will never go for war. The only thing is, it's just a justification for maintaining big military budgets. But anyway, there are a few more questions I want to talk, but I think I've been, and it's one of my problems. I can start a speech, but I don't know how to end it. I want to end it now. There are a few questions I often come across that, okay, Kashmir is being perhaps taken over by the fundamentalists, it's Al-Qaeda people fighting there and stuff like that. I think it's another big, it's another big misunderstanding about Kashmir. These fundamentalists, they are not Kashmiris. They were sent there by Pakistan. They have nothing to do with Kashmir. In Kashmir, we hate these fundamentalists because we have been the biggest victim of fundamentalists. We also hate this kind of Islam that Taliban imposed. We are very secular people there. I mean, in Kashmir, despite the big growth of fundamentalism, Islamic fundamentalism in Pakistan and rest of the Muslim world, and Hindu fundamentalism in India, for the last about 6 years, there is a Hindu fundamentalist government in India. In Kashmir, you don't see any support for Hindu fundamentalists or Muslim fundamentalists. For instance, they had election in Pakistan 2 years ago, after September 11. The fundamentalists could win elections in a big way in 2 out of 4 Pakistani provinces. But in Kashmir, they could hardly win 1 seat in the parliament in Pakistani occupied Kashmir. This is their support. Same is the case with Hindu fundamentalists in Jammu, hardly 1 seat. It's mainly the secular democratic parties who win elections in Kashmir, who have traditional support in Kashmir, especially in Pakistani occupied Kashmir. The left wing forces, especially the student movement, that is very strong. The biggest party in Pakistani occupied Kashmir, it's a left-wing party. The biggest student group in Pakistani occupied Kashmir, it's a left-wing, very open Marxist socialist group. I will just show some of the pictures when I was there, some demonstrations I went to. Well, this is another thing I will talk perhaps later on. And right now there are elections going on in India. Among other states, they want to have election in Kashmir as well. And this is just a picture showing the election process. Nobody is taking part in elections in Kashmir. They are boycotted. And this is how they are brought to election places and forced to vote. And here I finish for right now. You're welcome to ask any questions. Thank you.